Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Book Review Podcast. Today we are diving deep into Deep Work by Cal Newport.
Yeah, this one's a real popular one. Lots of people asking us to get into it.
It is, and for good reason, I think. This book, it's kind of a self-help book, right?
Yeah, productivity, getting things done.
Yeah.
But it goes a little deeper than that, you know?
It does. It kind of goes beyond just like the typical tips and tricks and really explores like the philosophy almost of focus and concentration in kind of our modern world.
It's almost like a superpower these days, right? To actually be able to focus.
Totally. So the main thing that we're going to be looking at today is this idea of deep work, right?
Right.
And how it contrasts with what Newport calls shallow work.
Uh-huh.
And so we'll kind of define those things and talk about the benefits of deep work, why it's so important.
Exactly. And you know, most importantly, like how do we actually do it? Like what are the tactics?
Yes, the practical steps.
We can take to actually cultivate this deep work habit.
Perfect.
Okay.
All right. So let's just jump right in. I think everyone listening can probably relate to this. Like you have those days where,
oh yeah,
you know, you're just like glued to your computer screen, you're answering emails, you're kind of bouncing between different tasks, but you're not really getting anything meaningful done.
You feel busy, but have you actually achieved anything?
Yeah.
Not really.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're just kind of spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
And the book talks about this, right?
It does. It talks about this sense of being busy but unproductive. And it argues that a lot of that stems from what it calls shallow work.
Okay. So shallow work, what is that exactly?
Well, shallow work is basically the opposite of deep work, right? It's that kind of work that we do in a distracted state.
Okay.
Where our attention is constantly being pulled in different directions. So think about like checking email, scrolling social media,
right,
multitasking, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And the book makes a really interesting point about, you know, even just briefly switching between tasks, right? Like even if you're not like spending hours on social media, but you're just kind of like quickly checking your phone or, you know, glancing at an email.
Right.
That can actually have a negative impact on your focus and productivity.
Yeah. And that's because of something called attention residue, which a researcher named Professor Sophie Leroy has studied.
Oh, interesting.
And what she found is that when we switch from one task to another, part of our attention kind of like lingers on that previous task.
Oh, I see.
So even though we've moved on to something new, we're not fully present. We're not fully engaged.
So it's like you're not really giving 100% to either task.
Exactly. And this attention residue, it builds up over time, especially if we're constantly switching between tasks and checking notifications and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So our brains are just kind of like constantly fragmented.
Exactly. And that's one of the big problems with shallow work. It prevents us from really getting into that state of flow where we're fully immersed in what we're doing.
Right.
And where we can actually produce our best work.
Yeah, I think everyone has probably experienced that, right? Like when you're really in the zone.
Absolutely.
And you're just like laser focused on something, time kind of flies by. And you're just like so productive.
You just get so much more done.
Yeah.
And the quality of work is usually much higher.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's really what the book is arguing for, right? It's like
exactly. It's saying that deep work is the key to producing our best work.
Okay.
To really making a meaningful contribution. And to feeling fulfilled in what we do.
So how does the book actually define deep work then?
Well, Cal Newport, he defines deep work as professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive abilities to their limit. So it's about really focusing intensely on a single task for an extended period of time without any distraction.
Okay. So that's kind of the ideal, right? Like no distractions whatsoever.
Exactly. But we'll get into some practical strategies later on for how to actually achieve that.
Okay.
Because it's not always easy, right?
No. Especially in today's world.
Right.
But the benefits sound amazing. I mean, if you can really get into that state.
They are.
So I'm curious about the neurological aspect of this. Does the book talk about what's actually happening in our brains when we engage in deep work?
It does. It talks about how when we focus intensely for extended periods of time, our brains actually produce something called myelin.
Myelin. Okay, what's that?
So myelin is basically like an insulating layer that forms around our nerve fibers.
Okay.
And what it does is it helps those signals travel faster and more efficiently.
So it's like making our brains more efficient.
Exactly. And the more myelin we have, the better our brains are at learning and processing information.
That's fascinating. So it's not just that we're getting more done in the moment, but we're actually like improving our brain function over time?
Exactly. We're essentially training our brains to be more focused and more efficient.
Wow. That's a pretty compelling reason to try to cultivate deep work. I mean, beyond just getting more done, it's like you're actually making yourself smarter.
You are. You're investing in your cognitive ability.
Okay, so I'm sold on the benefits, but how do we actually make this happen?
Well, that's where the practical strategies come in. And the book offers a bunch of really helpful tips.
Okay, let's hear them.
All right. So the first step is to really define your goals.
Okay.
You need to be very clear about what you want to achieve during your deep work sessions. So rather than just saying, I'm going to work on this project,
Right.
you want to be more specific, like I'm going to write the introduction to this chapter, or I'm going to analyze this data set.
Right.
So having a clear goal in mind will help you stay focused and motivated.
Okay, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
once you have your goal, what's next?
Next, you need to create a schedule. You need to actually block out time in your day for deep work. And you need to treat those blocks of time as sacred.
Yeah.
No meetings, no interruptions, no distractions.
This is where it gets tough for a lot of people, I think.
It is, but it's essential. If you want to make deep work a habit, you need to be consistent.
Right.
So try to schedule deep work sessions at the same time each day.
Okay.
And gradually increase the duration of those sessions over time.
So start small and then build up to longer periods.
Exactly. You don't want to try to go from 0 to 4 hours of deep work overnight.
Right. That would be overwhelming.
It would. It's better to start with maybe 30 minutes or an hour and then gradually work your way up.
Okay. What else? What other strategies are there?
So once you have your schedule, you need to create a ritual.
A ritual.
Yeah. A series of actions that you perform before each deep work session to kind of signal to your brain that it's time to focus.
Oh, interesting. Like a pre-game routine.
Exactly. So it could be something as simple as like making a cup of coffee,
Okay.
putting on some noise-canceling headphones, and then sitting down at your desk.
Okay. So just kind of like getting yourself in the zone.
Exactly. And over time, your brain will start to associate those actions with focus and concentration.
That's really smart. Okay. What else?
So the next step is to construct a frame.
Construct a frame. What does that mean?
So a frame is basically like a set of rules or boundaries that you create for your deep work sessions.
Okay.
So for example, you might decide that you're only going to work in a certain location, like your office or a coffee shop.
Right.
Or you might decide that you're going to use a certain app or tool to help you stay focused.
Okay.
Or you might decide that you're going to take breaks at certain intervals.
Right.
So having a frame in place will help you stay on track and avoid distractions.
It's like setting yourself up for success.
Exactly. It's about creating an environment that is conducive to deep work.
Okay. So we've got our goals defined, our schedule created, our ritual in place, our frame constructed. What's next?
The next step is to actually embrace boredom.
Embrace boredom. That sounds counterintuitive.
I know, but it's actually really important because one of the biggest challenges to deep work is our constant desire for stimulation.
Right?
We're so used to having our phones and our laptops and our TVs always on that we've forgotten how to just be bored.
Yeah.
But boredom is actually a really valuable state because it forces us to be present with our own thoughts.
Okay.
And it allows our minds to wander and make connections that we wouldn't otherwise make.
So it's like giving our brain some downtime.
Exactly. And that downtime is essential for creativity and problem solving.
So how do we actually embrace boredom?
Well, one way is to schedule time for boredom.
Schedule time for boredom.
Yeah, just like you schedule time for work and for exercise.
Okay.
Schedule time for doing absolutely nothing.
So like just sit there and stare at the wall.
Pretty much. Or go for a walk without your phone. Or just sit in a park and watch the clouds go by.
Okay. So just kind of disconnect from all the stimulation.
Exactly. And you might be surprised at how difficult it is at first.
I bet.
But the more you practice, the easier it will become.
And the more your brain will benefit from that downtime.
Exactly.
Okay.
What else?
So another important strategy is to be lazy.
Be lazy.
Yeah. Now, I don't mean like being lazy in the traditional sense.
Okay.
What I mean is that you need to give your brain time to rest and recover after deep work sessions.
Okay.
So don't try to cram in more work or check your email or scroll through social media right after a deep work session.
Right.
Just relax, take a break, go for a walk, do something that doesn't require a lot of mental effort.
So it's like giving your brain a chance to process everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to recharge for the next deep work session.
That makes sense. Okay, so let's talk about distractions. I mean, they're kind of the enemy of deep work, right?
They are. and they're everywhere. But the good news is that we can learn to resist them.
Okay. How?
Well, one way is to simply be aware of them.
Okay.
Pay attention to what distracts you and when.
And then try to eliminate those distractions as much as possible.
So, like, if you know that you're always getting distracted by your phone, put it in another room.
Exactly. Or turn off notifications. Or use an app to block distracting websites.
Right.
The key is to make it as difficult as possible for yourself to get distracted.
Okay. What else?
So another strategy is to train your attention.
Train your attention.
Yeah. And one of the best ways to do that is through meditation.
Meditation.
Yeah. Because meditation is basically like a workout for your attention muscle.
Okay.
It teaches you how to focus on a single object, like your breath or a mantra,
Right.
and to gently redirect your attention when it wanders.
Okay. So it's like building up your ability to focus.
Exactly. And the more you meditate, the better you'll become at resisting distractions.
That's interesting. I've never really thought about meditation in that way.
Yeah. It's a really powerful tool for improving your focus and concentration.
Okay, so we've talked about a lot of different strategies for cultivating deep work, but can we kind of put it all together? Like, what would a typical deep work session look like?
Sure. So let's say you want to write a blog post.
Okay.
The first step would be to define your goal.
Right.
So your goal might be to write a 1,000-word blog post on the topic of deep work.
Okay.
Then you would schedule a block of time in your day for deep work, maybe 2 hours.
Okay.
And you would find a quiet place to work where you won't be interrupted.
Right.
Then you would perform your ritual, which might involve making a cup of tea, putting on your noise-canceling headphones, and opening up your writing software. And then you would start writing.
And just write for 2 hours straight?
Well, not necessarily straight. You might want to take breaks every 45 minutes or so to stretch and move around.
Okay.
But the key is to stay focused on your goal of writing that blog post.
Right.
No checking email, no scrolling social media, no multitasking.
Okay. So just like pure, undistracted writing.
Exactly. And after 2 hours, you would reward yourself with a break. Maybe go for a walk, listen to some music, or have a snack.
Okay. So that's what a deep work session might look like.
Yeah. And of course, you can adapt this to your own needs and preferences.
Right.
But the basic principles are the same.
Define your goal, schedule your time, create a ritual, construct a frame, embrace boredom, be lazy, train your attention, and resist distractions.
Exactly.
That's a lot to remember.
It is. But it's worth it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the benefits of deep work are just too great to ignore.
I agree.
All right, so that's our deep dive into deep work by Cal Newport.
Yeah, what a book. Really makes you think.
It does. It really does. And I hope it's inspired our listeners to try to incorporate some of these principles into their own lives.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think we could all benefit from a little more deep work in our lives.
Absolutely. All right, well, that's all the time we have for today. But before we go, I just want to remind everyone to subscribe to the podcast and leave us a review.
Yeah. And if you want to see us deep dive into a specific book, let us know.
Exactly. We love hearing from you guys. All right, until next time, happy reading.